Hey, this is Zeb, and thank you for joining me here at Zeb's Corner. Today I want to get into, let's suppose you have some drum sounds, some, snare sample and a kick sample and all that other good stuff, but you kind of really want to give it a sense of room appeal, like you really played it in a real live room sense. There's several ways you could do it, and if you're an engineer, you could come up with all kinds of crazy recipes to get that point across, right? But in this case here, I wanted to take a particular drums that I use, only this kick and this snare, right? That kick and that snare, and put it in another room effect like I actually recorded it in a room. I do not have that kind of room where I could play the drums, record it back, and blah, blah, blah. That's one way to do it, or put this huge effect on it to give it that room sense. And I'd rather go with the second sense, put a plug in that could actually give me that kind of room where it sounds like the kit itself was actually processed in a real sense or a real drummer was on it, right? Even though it's only just this kick and that snare, no hi-hat or anything is playing along, because in the sample, the song has a drum rhythm that has a hi-hats in it. Sometimes I think if you do that hi-hat mix thing with other hi-hats, it could be a little too crazy if you don't know what you're doing. So let me just play you just the two in perspective, and then I'll get into the recipe. So here we go. Okay, so what you were listening to is this purple stuff here, which is the Kong, and some stuff that's going on in this section here. This track was made when I had Reason 5, and as soon as I got 6, I did some rewiring and left what was in 5 alone, and redid some things. I liked what I did in 5, but oops, I really want to go here. So this is what I have going on here. I have the Kong going, and I have this Haas effect in here, which I like. So let's play without bypassed. So the effect is bypassed. We're going to play the drums by itself without the Haas effect on it. All right. Nothing horrible, nothing super great either, but we put it on, and this is what we get. Now, the Haas effect, in theory, if I'm saying it correctly, is nothing more than a stereo or delay from what's happening to the left before it happens to the right, or the right before it happens to the left. So something is playing, and it's in that field, and the delay that you hear on the right or left is coming from the settings of it all. So it's in stereo, or it's mimicking some sense of stereo space, but it's not panning in a sense, but it's just a delay from the signal of the sound hitting to whatever happens in your other ear, whatever the case is. I hope I said that correctly, because I don't know the exact science behind Haas effect. I just know it's not your typical stereo effect. All right. And so I like what the Haas effect in Reason does, and I think maybe even what Pro Tools could do. You could set your own settings for Haas effect and Cubase and so forth and so on. I kind of like the presets here because of the Haas to be particular, because I like what it does, and you can really adjust it to your liking. It's not a simple just put a stereo in it and then let it do its thing. You could really play with how spacey or how much of that of space you could get when you play with the Haas versus just a regular stereo effect. So anyway, in this effect, I added something. Let's go there. I added something that is not technically in the Haas, which is this reverb, right? So we're going to bypass the reverb and play the Haas effect with the drums, and then we'll go into the reverb. Here we go. Now I could hit it harder just to be, a butt head. And this is the whole effect hard with it in the Kong. Here we go. You could hear the signaling going on, what's happening between the right and the left. And there's, I think, a lot more on the right than less on the left. So you adjust it. You don't want to make it too crazy. At least I don't in this particular case. And let's hear how that sounds. To me, it sounds fine right there. But it still doesn't give me the room, right? I get stereo, but I don't get room, right? So I put I didn't do anything crazy. I just attached this reverb in or connected to the echo, and I use just a drum room ambience. This is what I got. We'll make it really wet, and then I'm sure you're going to hear a huge difference there too. Now, why you hear so much on the right is because I didn't do any splitting. I didn't do any audio splitter in it. I was too lazy. That reverb unit is connected to the echo, which is mostly what's happening on the right side, right? So you'll hear some delay on the right of it more than you hear on the left, right? I could have done a splitter, but again, lazy. So I connected it. So I pulled this back. I dialed this back a little bit. And I actually don't mind the signaling that's happening on the right side, or the delay, or whatever the case is. I don't mind that too much. So here we go. Did some gating a little bit. Didn't want to hold it too long. So there you have it, right? That gives me a room effect. This recipe is not the same or should I say this recipe that I'm using here is not the recipe you should go with all the time. However, if you do, I could have easily done something like taken that Kong and gotten rid of one of these and sent a room effect to the Kong itself. I ran out of space. I like what I had there. I didn't want to take anything off. I could have connected a drum. I could have connected it directly to the Kong itself, but I didn't want to do that either. I just thought it needed to be subtle because I wanted the drums to actually sound kind of glued to the sample of the drums that's going on in there. So let's take that off. Again, it's kind of loud just so you guys could hear it, but I think you'll get the idea of what I got going on. Let's see something here. Okay. So now that drum part doesn't come throughout the whole section. Again, it's only what's in purple. So we'll go here and we'll play it from there into how it comes in, and then see if you get where I'm going with it. Here we go. Now let's see if you even hear the difference with it off. Let's go here and let's just mute this section. That's what you would get if I took off the drums. So it's supposed to sound glued. It's supposed to sound like the drummer of the actual song or the actual sample was actually playing in that section. That's kind of what I wanted to go with it. I didn't want to make it sound so, current or 90s hip hop per se, where you could tell when the person actually threw their drums in versus, what was going on. I wanted it to be subtle, but I wanted to make an impact, right? So from here into the change is what I wanted to actually bring in. So I'm going to play it again, but without the drums, and then play it again with the drums so you can hear it. Not much, right? It sounds like something should have went there, right? Like something should have happened after this major thing happens in the green, and then when it does that there, something should have happened, right? At least that's the way I feel, right? So again, not to bore you with this stuff, but I'm gonna play it from the section into it with the drums, and then I think you guys would get the method of my madness here. Here we go. Okay, and one last thing, just so we could hear the difference. We're going to take the bypass, we're going to bypass the Haas effect with the room ambience in it and just play it by itself. I won't bore you with all that other stuff. We'll just take it from here and then play it in and see if you notice this huge difference. Turn it up so you can hear it, but this is what it sounds like with just these two going. As opposed to with the effect on it. So that was with no Haas effect with the ambience, and this is with it. This is with it with the effect and the extra added effect, and I'm stumbling on my words here. And actually exaggerated. So I have it at 0 now. And so you can hear the difference. Again, it's exaggerated, just so you could hear it. Let's bypass. Oh, I didn't unbypass it. Oops. Let's unbypass it. Okay, the ambience is, again, it's supposed to really give the effect of the room. So dialed back down. I forgot what I had it at. I had it at 3 something. Nothing too crazy. I'll leave it at that for now. And from this is with it on, and when it comes in with everything else. Here we go. Now, in this section, I'm certain you guys heard something, but in this section right here is where you'll hear the subtlety of the room mixed in with everything. This little section right here. So, one more time, just to listen to what's happening as to what's not happening. So this is it bypassed. And this is it with the bypass off. That little subtle difference gives color to it. And again, that's what mixing really is all about. I think once you get the philosophy, or you use some kind of crazy, kooky philosophy, it's all about color. It's not necessarily something that you want the audience to hear right away unless it's something that you want to emphasize on. There's no emphasis here. I just want subtlety so that you get into the groove. Once you get into the groove of it, then you've done all the work that you really needed to do. You don't need to necessarily do crazy bunch of kooky effects. You just want the effect to give a sense of glue, emotion, depending on what it is that you're doing for the set of an emotion, or a good feel. That's what mixing really is. It's a philosophy versus how many plugins can I really put into a song, because the plugins have purpose, and you must understand what those purposes are for. How do I achieve what I want with the chosen plugin is based on the recipe and what it is that you're trying to do. I hope I just made sense, because I just totally lost myself even with what I was saying. But it's subtle. It's always think subtle to maybe extreme. If you want something to do something crazy in that part, then hey, fine. But just like in this section here, I'll play one more time. And again, bypassed. The snare doesn't have its pronunciation without the effect in the spots where it makes a difference. Right there, it doesn't sound empty, because you hear the snare, but you don't get its pronunciation as much if you left it with no kind of room effect or anything like that. So here we go again with the bypass off. Again, that effect gives it something that wasn't there before, and it just gives it a room. Headphone space, room space, whatever. If you're listening to your music outside of a headphone environment or whatever, and you're using actual speakers, computer speakers, or whatever, these things give you a feeling. A lot of times when we're listening to music, for the most part, when the audience is listening to music, they don't know what they're listening to. They just know what it makes them feel like when they hear it, right? This is how you could achieve a feeling. So and this, like I said, the stuff in the purple doesn't really play that often, only plays in certain parts. So when it comes from here into here, the difference must be made. Obviously, without the drum part there, it sounds completely empty, and it sounds like the whole song is just this one, whatever type of groove. With the drums in a spot, and then you take it out, that's an arrangement thing. But what do we do with this part while it's arranged? You want some room, you want some space, you want some color, you want some whatever. Mixing is always about color. I'll probably say that a million times. It's always about color. It's always about how do you invoke or provoke the emotion of the person who's listening, and how do they listen? Headphones, room, whatever the case is. So anyway, I said that enough. It's a good trick. It's a good tip. Use it when necessary. Sometimes I don't always use a room effect for a set like this, because usually I would do that on a real drum kit. You don't have to, but I wanted this particular sound, this and that, to have that kind of drum sound. That room effect, that ambience effect. And I could have went with a smaller room. I could have went with a bigger room, if I'm not mistaken. I think the ambient is a room. Let's take a look real quick. I think it's a room. All right. Come on. Oops. Go here. It is a room. You can change the size of the room, the delay, the early reflection delay, or the early reflection, make it late, and the level of it. I didn't do any pre-delays. I didn't think it was necessary. You can change the shape of the room. How many rooms? How many walls? 3, 4, 2, 1, whatever. It's fine. I'm going to live with it. And it does what it needs to do. So, people, thank you for joining. I keep getting more subscribers every time I post a new show. And I am grateful for all those who stop by and comment and give me tips and stuff like that as well. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you for all the support that you've shown me thus far. For anybody else who wants to show me some more, hit the subscribe, hit the like, tell me what you think, and keep on coming. And thanks for stopping by at Zeb's Corner.
GPM.